All right, welcome to the Forge Coffee Break. This is the episode number 59. Thank you very much for joining today. As usual, this is a very open space for any topic or general questions that you may have. And I am at the office today, so it's not a virtual background today. So funny, but there is no one here, so be quiet anyway. So let me get with you. If you have any questions or topics, projects that you're working on, anything that you'd like to bring up or share. See a lot of repeated names. So welcome back, everyone. Okay, so what's going on our side? I usually like to quickly show the blogs, and there are always interesting things there. There's a new sample. If John is here, but no, he's not. He did a new sample. We used to have a very old sample about RCDB with database, but this is a newer version, and it shows now it shows the ability to do database, but with any model, right? So if the model is coming from something that you upload or from your BIM 360 projects or ACC projects, you can just bring the model here. And the interesting piece is that there is a database that stores the data, and that for each document, there is one document, there is one MongoDB document for each file that you upload. Then the data is kept there, right? So it doesn't matter how many you have, because we just have more models. So I know that Dennis may be thinking, okay, we have one document in Mongo for each one. Then there is a limit of data, right, Dennis? But as a sample, it makes sense. If you want to expand that and have one document for each property, that can definitely be, it's doable. But it shows how you can have your own database, which is completely sample, and it's different from the data exchange. But no, it's just an interesting sample that we used to have that sample before, and now we are moving to this new version. And you can reuse the codes. It's much simpler and should be easier to use.
Yeah, and most interesting is that if you start to go this way and start to keep properties in a separate database, this opens a way to other workflows. Something like show me all the models where the price is like 999 in this case. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice start for these kind of workflows to externalize the data from the model.
So that the sample is live. Where is it? Live here, demo, and the source code is right here. And we are moving those samples from out of the Forge branding to the APS branding. So that should be coming shortly, but no, the sample is here, and the source code should not change that much, at least the important piece. That's one new sample. And I think we mentioned last time, about the cloud work sharing, cloud models in BIM 360. That's also something new that came up. So did we talk about it? I think we did, but it's such an important thing that is now available. And the interesting piece is that you don't have to really specify the file, right? The RVT storage location. You specify the model UID, so then the system will grab that file from docs and start doing the work sharing. It's also an interesting feature. Yeah. Anyone that is working with work sharing models?
Yes, we do. Most of our work is work sharing models. So design automation in some ways wasn't really applicable for us up until now. So I'm guessing we're going to look at it in more detail.
Hey, Augusto, so one example of using this, the new design automation for cloud work sharing, is if you're doing project setup, in other words, you want to automate a BIM 360 or ACC project, one thing that a lot of folks want to do is they want to create some initial files and a Revit file template with the name of the project, those little bits of information at the beginning of a Revit file. Typically that would be in a standard Revit file, but what some people want is, some teams want is a cloud work sharing Revit file. And so this would be the way to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm getting the question. You're just explaining a workflow, right?
Yeah, just explaining a workflow that wasn't possible before. It's now an important one.
Setting up projects in docs, and by project I mean a folder with lots of files, right? That is something that is really kick off your design. So it's really important indeed.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm planning on putting a small blog post together on doing project setup automation, beyond just the user interface. So this will include that little nugget.
Yeah, Mike, you might do you do something right now and what works right now, or do you wait a month or two until the Autodesk Construction Cloud Admin API kind of gets finished off, which will address a couple of limitations we have to deal with right now? Because I can imagine.
I thought about that too, and I still think it's valuable. There are still folks that need to automate beyond just the user interface inside ACC Admin.
Yeah, maybe I'll take a step back for folks who are kind of interested. If you go back to, I'll call it classic BIM 360, and this is several years back, you could automate creation of a project, assign people, give them privileges, remove people. And if you're a large, let's say, construction company, and you do, I don't know, 100, 200, 300,000 projects a year, you could automate that setup in the old BIM 360 field. So from a spreadsheet or a web page, you can automate complete setup, project created, folder set, people added, and people may be added from an HR system, or, projects initiated from a finance system. And we lost some of that with BIM 360 Next Gen. You could do some of it, but you couldn't do all of it. And with the Autodesk Construction Cloud, there's an admin API that we've been working on for a while now that we're probably 2 months away from you being able to automate all that. So again, whether you initiate a project from, it's initiated through finance or through some project management system or through some spreadsheet, you'll be able to totally automate that project setup, the addition of people, removing people when they leave the company, without having to worry about, did we forget to remove someone from these 5 different projects when they left the company? And then what we're talking about with design automation for Revit for cloud work sharing, not only can I set the project up and set the folders up, but I can set up cloud work sharing and, have that Revit seed file ready to rock and roll, and the team can jump in and start working.
Yeah, lots of goodies coming soon, right, Jim?
And if you're somebody like, AECOM, you do 1,000 of these a year. It is actually a big deal. And maybe just as importantly, maybe more importantly, if all the projects are structured in a very consistent manner, you then can create dashboards that are extracting information in a very kind of high quality way. So you can manage all these projects in a very consistent way, and not have inconsistencies because you had mere humans, try to follow some company standards, which is hard to do. Yeah, so it's all very promising.
Yeah, indeed. So there was a question from Scott about read and recap files in Forge Viewer instead of using Poetry, right? And you already replied, Michael, but just to record. Yes, you can do that with the. Can you explain a bit more, maybe, Mike?
Sure. Let me pull up a quick video here, which will be a little bit faster than trying to explain it. Hang on a second.
I think you did a class at the U as well, right?
Yes, I did. Really quickly, let's just share screen on this thing. Let me see. I might just optimize for video clip. I know I'm going to regret this, but let's see what happens. So just like Poetry, 3D tiles or CCM, essentially, CCM invented the 3D tiles open format. It breaks point clouds into tiles, these little cubes, if you like, of points, and Forge Viewer can stream those in. So you can see this is just sort of like a debug view of what's going on under the hood. And then I'm going to show you this feature in BIM 360, which looks like this. So if you've got BIM 360 or ACC Build, you can upload your RCP files to the cloud, to Docs. And you can just click on the RCP file now, and it will just stream in the points, just like Poetry does, but it's already done all for you. So converting from recap into Poetry, don't have to do that anymore. We do that for you. We convert it to 3D tiles instead, which is a different format to Poetry. And it's an open format as well. And you can now stream in those points in the browser, just like you could with Poetry. And then you get all the fun tools as well, like being able to add annotations and markups and bits and pieces from the browser. Scott, does that answer your question? I've also got some other examples of how you can pull this in to your own custom Forge Viewer. So if you're using Forge Viewer, you can, I can show you this video. So you can pull this into your own custom Forge Viewer like this. This is the CAD model, and then combine that with the points. And so you can sort of see the two things working together. So you can do that yourself. A blog post is on its way to show you how to do this. And all the fun tools are still there, markup and measurement, etc. All the same things as before.
Michael, when you're using your own viewer, do you still need to pull the tiles out of BIM 360 or ACC?
You have a choice. You can use the URN and your access token, and that'll pull it directly from our servers, just, derivative services, just like SVF. So you don't have to do anything special. You just provide the URN, and then that'll pull the tiles into the Forge Viewer. Or if you want, you can download the tiles offline with the script, which is also an option if you're doing sort of offline work on an iPad or something like that.
So is Model Derivative doing the tiling?
Model Derivative just is a file server in the cloud, and tiles, 3D tiles are just files.
Yeah, but where are the 3D tiles created?
The 3D tiles are created from the recap engine, which I've got a little diagram here of. So essentially you upload your RCP file to the cloud, to Model Derivative service, that then converts those recap files into tileset.json master file, and then a whole lot of tile files. And then that's stored. It's stored in the Forge cloud in the same derivative, the same location as Forge derivatives. So SVF files, for example. And then finally, Forge Viewer or CCM or Unreal Engine, you basically give it that tileset.json file, this one over here. And then from the tileset.json file, it knows how to pull the rest of those assets.
But net, it is. It uses model derivative, and it has a RCP translation worker, as I'd call it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, and the end result's pretty straightforward. The idea is that based on the camera position, wherever you're looking, it will load dense points closer to the camera and sparse points further away. That's all it is. I can dig into the details another time. It's not that exciting right now.
Well, that is exciting. So it's interesting to see that kind of optimization, right?
Do you want to see something cool?
I don't know. You have a few more minutes then. Just
all right, I'll make it quick.
not that much.
Let's go to this one. Share screen. Now this is the same tile sets, but using InfraWorks data. So you can stream in, excuse me. You can stream in same thing, same technique, HLODs with 3D tiles, but instead of points, we're streaming in textures and triangle meshes. And yeah, it's a little preview. What's going on? And you can see it loads nice and fast.
Yeah, way faster.
Okay, that's a little preview. What's coming?
Cool.
Have a guess what product that's for.
Hey, Michael, were you able to, did you show that you had multiple models in there with the point cloud and maybe the Revit model?
Yeah, you can do that. You can use 3D tiles for federating scenes, and so you can have a Revit model as a CAD model with point clouds from Recap with terrain from InfraWorks.
Yeah.
So Michael, it's basically you just append the URN and you map over them and then you load them to the viewer, right? I guess you wrote an a blog post like a year or two before about that. Is it the same method?
Sorry, can you repeat that about the URN?
Yeah, I'm just saying the viewer URN. So if you map over them and you load them one on top of each other and the same viewer, so you can end up with the result.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're just considered as layers. So each URN is a new layer, just like doing multimodal loading.
Okay. Great.
But again, people new to this just have to recognize you do have to deal with what could be different coordinate systems being used by the different models that you're loading. Some models being pretty smart about coordinate systems and maybe they have geolocation and some not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, usually we make sure where I doing it myself, like when you have links files with Revit, so basically it's already had its coordinates.
Yeah, because one of the benefits of using the InfraWorks in that case is to have the bigger area and then the buildings will be directly there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. They're talking about lots of things, but yeah, it's just a beginning right now. But they had all sorts of ideas on even point clouds and LiDAR, drone scans and all sorts of things. So we'll see what happens. Not sure yet.
While we're on this, just because this is a cutting edge group, so just be aware this whole 3D tiling approach for point clouds. We're doing some serious kind of proof of concept investigating about applying it to geometry, so tiles. I'm sure many of you at some point have run into a way too large Revit model. 10 gigabytes, 20 gigabytes. I've seen 100 gigabytes set of linked RVT files. So there's some chance we can apply 3D tiles to triangles and basically allow you to use the Forge view with very, very large models. And don't take this to the bank. Don't take this as a sure thing, but do know, you know, that's something that Michael has been working with the viewing team to do. Yeah. People always ask me, I need bigger, I need better performance, and you know, and it's been getting better year by year, but this could be a kind of order of magnitude leap in size. And maybe the other tricky bit to that is us giving you the ability to bring in metadata kind of on demand instead of loading it in big memory consuming chunks.
So let me switch gears to there's another question here saying, why are you using GraphQL for beta of model API? That's an interesting one. Dennis was very much involved there, right? And so I'd like to give it a hint.
Yeah, I can explain you. So for instance, if you are using the REST API and you say something like, give me all the items that are in a folder, let's say an example of data management, then what you will get back will be like pages and pages and pages with information. And for each item, you will have information. What are the, let's say, the extensions? What are the things that maybe you don't use it? GraphQL, on the other hand, allows you to query exactly the same data, but you can specify what fields you are interested in. So in the very same query will be something like, give me all the items, but I'm interested only in name and ID, and that's it. And this is what you will get back. Yeah, here is an example from the documentation, but I think I can show you an example.
Yeah, I'll give it that, but it's just that as Dennis was saying, right? You can specify that I want the name, height, and mass,
exactly,
and that will come just that piece of information, not everything else, right? So, but yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
And I think, you know, the term we're using a lot at Autodesk is granular access to data. So that's kind of the concept of getting access to just what you need and not everything else. So if you compare it to model derivative today, when you get properties, you get a giant JSON packet with everything. And as a developer, you have to sort through that to get what you want. With GraphQL, it just basically gives us a framework to allow us to get what you query for. And it really lends itself well to the idea of data and database access. So that's kind of why we're going with GraphQL for a lot of our data initiatives coming up.
So before we keep exploring that, Jonathan, do you have anything about this, or why are you asking this?
No, I was just wondering because suddenly it's something new in you know, from the examples I've seen so far and so on. So basically the idea is you can get to the data you want, you get the IDs, and then you put and then you ask for more data about these specific items, right? These pieces of data, these elements, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you access to more
I
closely get the
understand.
results you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You get there quicker.
Yeah. And the part of it was based on feedback that we got during a private beta where we did expose more traditional REST APIs. And the challenge is that our underlying architecture is using an asset graph style database. And when using REST APIs, you know, you have to work with things like relationships, edges, you know, things that are more terminology for the asset graph than industry terms like windows and doors and components and structures. So with GraphQL, we can kind of abstract away some of our implementation details and leave those at the underlying server level. And then for you, the consumer, you know, using GraphQL, you get exactly what you want. And you can still get everything if that's what you really want. But most people don't need everything. So that's the philosophy there.
does it support folder content instead? Because today in the way I used to use it, I'm not sure if it changed, that if I'm looking for a certain folder file inside the folder in BIM 360, you need to map through all of them. For instance, if you want to extract all the RVT files and all the folders, but you need to hit a couple of requests and it will be promises, and it does take a lot of time to get them. Is it possible with this method, when we use GraphQL, you just specify the name of the files and you get them directly, the URN?
Not really, because you see what you are talking about is basically the SDK itself. And technically the SDK is around the capabilities right now, around the REST API. In GraphQL, there is addition, and step by step it will be added something like a filtering capability. So you will say something like, I want all items I have in this folder having this name, or having this like type and things like that, and it will let's say it will minimize at least the amount of data that you will get.
Yeah, exactly. Because now the pain of recursive calling, it's too much for us and for you.
Yeah, and this is what. This is what I was telling you, that you have these kind of recurses calls mainly because there are a lot of data and the pagination. Well, if you are limiting the amount of data that you are requiring, so let's say you want only the name, then the JSON will not exceed the amount of rows that it should be, and then you will get more kind of a nicer result. So
we need to be clear. The question was really about walking a BIM 360 ACC hub. And yes, a GraphQL approach would be better, but there's no work being done in that area right now. So,
it's future. It's future. You know, that will come. And GraphQL is very new to us as well. So keep that in mind. Yeah. So right now, the Fusion Data API is the released API, and it does allow, it has a wrapper around the same data management APIs that you use today, but it allows you to iterate a Fusion Team Hub, for example. Yeah. So that same idea will eventually come to other APIs, especially when we start talking about AEC information model. But we're not there yet, like Jim says. So it really depends on the specific API that you're working with today. The goal is, though, we definitely would welcome your feedback about GraphQL and what you think about it. And what we're seeing now is that the other data initiatives are also kind of open arms to the idea of GraphQL. So I believe that's going to be our long-term solution.
Yeah.
So just sharing that we do have a call for beta for the AEC piece of that. So Kevin was mentioned Fusion. We are working towards the AEC piece. This is really to understand what kind of workflows you are trying to do, right? So in this case, Abeb, you're talking about iterating through all the modules, right? See here, there is one of the list here, navigate the hub project into design and down to an entity, parameters and their values, right? So this is one of the things that we're aiming for. But again, this first thing here is beta to gather feedback and understand if the queries we have are close to what we're looking for.
Yeah, Augusto, just to get to the point though, the question really wasn't about granular data, it was about files. So the question, if you could kind of take home, because we hear this again and again, and we've known this for, 6 years now, you would think it would be easy to get the complete tree for any of our hubs, any docs hub. And today you can't, you got to walk it, and it's just painful.
And another initiative that is going on is common workspace. So you've probably heard us talk a little bit about that idea. And that idea is really to bring together these different hub environments as well. So again, it's a long-term vision, but we hope that it's not going to matter what industry you're in as to what hub you access. You're going to be able to access your customer data regardless of what industry they're in the same place. And at that point, probably we'll be using GraphQL and provide a much richer way, as you described, to get access to the data you need. So if you're working with AEC data, you can find those files. If you're working with Fusion data, you'll find those files much easier. That's the goal and vision.
Hopefully it will arrive soon. it's a lot of because to be honest, I feel sad every time I hit, because I do it like every Sunday at night, like hit all the BIM 360, get all the files, take all the data, filter them, add them, and do, I don't know, automatic scheduling for the entire organization. So I feel really sad when you...
Maybe you should move that to Mondays so it lines up with the day better. just joking. Just joking.
As a promise, you don't do debounce for me, it's fine.
All right. So with that, no, it's just on time, 8:30. And thank you very. So this is from sharing this, right? Next coffee break, same link, same time in 2 weeks, November 16. There was a question about recording will be on YouTube and Twitter shortly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it. Thank you very much for joining today. Hope to see you in 2 weeks. Same link, same time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hey, Augusto, there was a question from Ravi. Sorry if it's not too late. Ravi, did you want to maybe ping myself or Augusto about your question there?
Sure, yeah.